This week, the Air National Guard painting facility in Sioux City, Iowa launched a unique, one-colored and darker F-16 Fighting Falcon fighter, Defenseblog reported. The F-16 Fighting Falcon is a compact, multi-role fighter. This fighter jet is very maneuverable and has proven itself in air-to-air combat and air attack to the surface. The sleek fighter aircraft provides a relatively inexpensive high-performance weapons system for the United States and allied countries. In air combat roles, the F-16's maneuverability and combat radius, the distance he can fly to enter air combat, and return, exceeds all other potential combat aircraft. The F-16 can find targets in all weather conditions and detect planes that fly very low amid radar noise. In the air-to-surface role, the F-16 can fly more than 500 miles (860 kilometers), deliver its weapons with superior accuracy, defend itself against enemy aircraft strikes, and return to the starting point. The all-weather capability allows it to send weapons accurately during non-visual bombing conditions. The new one-color paint scheme is a new trend from the previous two-color gray paint scheme, which is usually associated with F-16s belonging to the United States Air Force. The F-16 Fighting Falcon is a supersonic multi-role fighter jet developed by the General Dynamics Company, which then began an acquisition by Lockheed Martin, for the United States Air Force. It was originally designed as an air superiority fighter but eventually evolved into a very popular multi-role fighter. The ability of the F-16 to be used for all kinds of missions is needed to succeed in the export market, and is used by 24 countries other than the United States. This aircraft is very popular internationally, and has been used by 25 air forces throughout the world. The F-16 is the largest and most significant West Bloc fighter aircraft project, with around 4,000 F-16 units approved since 1976. This aircraft is not intended for the United States Air Force but is still needed for export. In 1993, General Dynamics sold the Lockheed Corporation manufacturing business, which subsequently became part of Lockheed Martin after a merger with Martin Marietta in 1995. The F-16 itself is known to have excellent combat capability in the air, with supports such as a rimless cockpit lid that makes vision clear, control handles other than to facilitate control at high speeds, and cockpit seats designed to facilitate the use of G-force on pilots. This aircraft is also the first fighter aircraft made to withstand the turning power at 9 grams acceleration. The F-16 has an M61 Vulcan rifle inside the fuselage and 11 pylon locations to carry weapons and other mission equipment. The official name of the F-16 itself is Fighting Falcon, but Viper is more commonly used by ground crews and pilots, due to its similarity to the Snake Viper and starfighter Colonial Viper from the Battlestar Galactica TV show. The F-16 is now active in the United States Air Force, the Air Force Reserve Command, and the National Air Guard Unit. This aircraft is also used by aircraft in 25 other countries. Until 2015, this aircraft was the most rigid-winged aircraft used by military branches in the world. In the 1960s, the United States Air Force and Navy concluded that the future of air combat would be determined by increasingly modern missiles, in that future fighter planes will be used to pursue long-range, high-speed, and use very powerful radar systems to detect enemies from a distance. This makes the design of today's fighter aircraft more like an interceptor than a classic fighter. At that time, the United States considered F-111 aircraft, which were still under development, and F-4 Phantom to be sufficient for the needs of long-range and medium-range fighter aircraft, and supported by single-engine short-range aircraft such as the F-100 Super Sabre, F-104 Starfighter, and F-8 Crusader. During its time in Vietnam, the United States realized that there were still many weaknesses in their aircraft, especially the need for air superiority and better training for fighter pilots. Air-to-air missile control at that time still had many problems, and their use was also limited by certain rules. In addition, more air combat in the form of close combat where agility in the air and melee weapons are needed. Col. John Boyd developed the energy maneuver theory in combat aircraft based on his experience during the Korean War, assisted by mathematician Thomas P. Christie, who relied on large wings to be able to maneuver good air. The theory requires the fighter to have a light body weight, so that it can maneuver without producing much energy loss, as well as engines with high thrust-weight ratios. In the late 1960s, Boyd gathered like-minded inventors and founded the Fighter Mafia organization, and successfully secured funding from the United States Department of Defense in 1969, together with General Dynamics and Northrop, to conduct research on the theory. Bigger wings will produce greater friction when flying, and more results in less range and lesser speed. Boyd considers the sacrifice of the distance and speed needed to produce an aircraft that can maneuver properly. At the same time, the development of the F-111 encountered many problems, which required cancellation, and transferred a new design, the F-14 Tomcat. Boyd's impetus about the importance of agile aircraft, the failure of the F-111 program, and the difficulty of information about the MiG-25, which currently requires exaggeration, made the United States Air Force make its own aircraft design, which produced the F-15 Eagle. At the time of its development, the F-15 evolved to be as large and heavy as the F-111. This made Boyd a lack, and he also agreed to several other Air Force officials who mentioned that the F-15 needed the support of lighter fighter aircraft. This group of Air Force officials called themselves Fighter Mafia, and those who were needed would be asked for the Light Combat Aircraft (LWF) program. In May 1971, the United States Congress issued a report that sharply criticized the F-14 and F-15 programs. Congress agreed to require an LWF program of US $50 million, with an additional $12 million the following year. Several companies gave proposals, but only General Dynamics and Northrop, who had previously started the design, were chosen to produce prototypes. Their aircraft began issuing in 1974. The LWF program began as an evaluation program without purchasing a product version, but eventually this program was changed to be called the Air Combat Fighter, and the U.S. Air Force announced plans to purchase 650 ACF products. On January 13, 1975, it was announced that the YF-16 General Dynamics defeated its rival, YF-17.